Hello, Perrin Lovett, PerrinLovett.me, and Freedom Prepper. Welcome to Prepper News Weekly for Friday, May 25th, 2018. I'd like to thank you for joining. If you'll go down and subscribe to the channel, if you will, and like the video, if you like it, and please feel free to share this, spread the good news, and so forth. Or not, your call. Today we're going to talk about something interesting that came out of Sweden, a call to arms, seemingly, and a bunch of other stuff. Let's get right into it. And we do have a lot of news to cover. I made a script today. Quality improving all the time here. I just want to touch on the shooting at the high school in Santa Fe, Texas. I did about a 20-minute video, which you can go back and take a look at with my take on that. Didn't really fit the narrative that the left is pushing, and they've, sadly for them, they've not gotten much traction for their gun control. One of the, I think, an MSNBC reporterette went to the school, interviewed a bunch of students, and just constantly pushed them to endorse gun control, and they just constantly would not. It was kind of funny. Funny out of tragedy. The tragedy of the Parkland shooting down in Florida just gets just worse every day. The dead are buried, but the tragedy continues. David Hogg, who I think is probably has some sort of disorder in his amygdala, was on Twitter calling for a boycott or protest or something about the Publix supermarkets chain because they endorsed a candidate in Florida who took money from the NRA. We know the NRA is the most evil organization on the earth, literally invented by Satan himself, even though they don't believe in Satan or God. And so if you're at a Publix in Florida today, or maybe other places, you may see mentally ill people lying down in the front lobby area, maybe lying in the aisles. Take pity on them, walk around them, and step over them. I'm sure the police will come along and remove them and maybe send them off to get some help. There's a lot that can be done to help these people. Transcranial magnetic therapy is showing great promise. Good old lithium not only can cure these disorders, but actually can regrow parts of the brain and restore normal functioning. There is hope. There is hope. Even hope in places like Venezuela. I linked a video, I think yesterday or this morning. It should have shown up on the site, and maybe today on the Facebook page. Stefan Molyneux interviewed Joseph Humire, who studies the proliferation of terrorism in places like South and Central America, and they talked about the refugees streaming out of Venezuela, headed for other countries in the region, other Bolivarian republics, and also coming up towards Mexico and the United States. This crisis is having an impact on Americans because there are embedded elements within these refugee columns. All of this, the product of good old socialism. And I'm going to talk in a minute about another video Stefan put out that I also linked about the results of socialism, with more socialism to come. Do keep an eye on Venezuela, and apparently now you can keep an eye on Argentina, but right now Venezuela is the bellwether, the microcosm of why you need to prep, because your country can be reduced to utter ruin with 13,000% inflation and so on, and people will have to flee. But I meant to do this first. Let's talk about some good news. Our enemies are always pushing, constantly, everywhere, all the time, pushing their garbage. And lately, people have begun to push back. The decent people are fighting back with good results. Let me give you a couple of 3 examples. I think just a few minutes ago, this morning, Friday morning, Harvey Slimestein surrendered himself to the New York City police to face rape charges. Hollywood values degrading women every chance you get, and now he's going to pay for it because people raise the alarm, and they're just sick of this crap. They're sick of the movies. People aren't going to see, things like Solo. Movie revenue is down. there was a kids movie. I don't know the name of it. I'm not into movies anymore, but it was a children's movie about dogs. I don't know if it was a cartoon or what, but apparently there was a pro-pedophilia scene. I'm not going to tell you what it involved. I've heard this secondhand. But people, even the soccer moms, with the big old SUV driving soccer moms, are waking up. They called out this as ridiculously inappropriate, period, especially in a children's movie, and made such a ruckus that the studio actually cut those scenes out of the movie after the movie was released into theaters. We're winning. The NFL they've either passed a rule or they're going to enact a rule to assess a 15-yard penalty for players who kneel during the national anthem. The NFL lost, 20% of its audience last season, mainly because of that and the other political shenanigans, which are still ongoing. These people don't give up. They make adjustments, and they keep... LA Rams fans, check out your cheerleaders this coming season. You check them out. I won't. I'm done with that nonsense. But anyway, we are fighting back, and we are getting some victories here and there. Now on to really heavy theories. This touches on the other Molyneux video. I'm not quite sure, and it also touches on the Swedish situation. I saw a couple of stories this week, and I commented on them. All of this stuff runs together. There's a man named Marvin Goodfriend, and Mr. Goodfriend is not your good friend. He's not a good friend. He's more of a good fiend. He's a bankster economist type who the Trump has nominated to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. One of his satanic schemes is he's one of the many pushing a cashless society. No more paper money, no more coins, everything digital and electronic. He's also pushing negative interest rates, which they already have. But when those two things are combined, you can't have cash under your mattress anymore. It's got to be digital currency. Well, how do you use that? Well, with a debit or credit card from a bank. You've got to keep your money in a bank. And if you have negative interest rates, one, that's a scheme. They've been using it. It's a way to expand the money supply so that the government gets their take, the central banks get their take, the big commercial banks get their take, the regional banks, the credit card companies, all these smaller banks, just making money out of nothing. And then finally, if you have a loan, you've got to pay it back at 5 or 9 or 19 or 39%. You've actually got to do real work, contribute real value to the system. They're just making money off of nothing. On the flip side, if you have money in the bank and there are negative interest rates, well, theoretically, you've got to pay the bank a fee to hold your money even when there's no other mechanism for you having the money. And if you don't, he proposes taxes and penalties. They want to rob you. They want to rob you of everything. They literally want to turn you into a medieval peasant. I thought about Sweden because I had posted a story to the old FP News site about an experimental program in Sweden going cashless, and the Swedes began to rebel. Again, people are waking up, people are fighting back. It's interesting that I saw that, and I had just run this story. It's my, the explosion bomb picture on the YouTube thumbnail is related to war. Is war coming? Maybe. The Swedish government is sending out a brochure to every single resident in the country. I've linked a copy of that. It's called "What If War Comes?" War, civil disorder, invasion, real war, Cold War, cyber war. Get ready, and a lot of this looks exactly like the kind of prepping that Freedom Prepper and other prepping sites have been into for years. It's actually good information. The question is, why are they pushing this now? And they're not alone. Generals in Switzerland are quietly making plans. Apparently the politicians and military in Germany and France are not so quietly making plans. They're on the other side. There's a lot going on in Europe that could spread to the rest of the world. that all has to do with globalism. People are getting sick of things like constant streams of refugees, looting money and sending it to terrorist groups in Africa. They're getting tired of these bankers wanting to rob you of your cash and turn you into a peasant. And they're fighting back, and of course the other side is preparing to fight as well. Interesting times. Stefan and Peter Schiff had an hour-long video that you really need to watch. I linked to it the other day. It's about the coming economic collapse, and they cover a couple dozen great subjects, to include the end of retirement and the fact that a lot of people that are recently retired are probably going to have to go back into the workforce to pay for all this debt. And if you watch that video, if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of get an understanding as to why these banksters want to go cashless and why they want negative interest rates. Even right now, as they say things are great, you know, no recession in sight, not going to have a recession for 10 years, the day of the recession is over, bullshit. And, you know, we now need to raise interest rates. So if interest rates are going up, why would they at the same time be wanting to go negative again, and go negative with no recourse for you? Well, it's because they know something is coming. They know the war is coming. They know the collapse is coming. And they want to enact every mechanism they can to pull as much money and power and freedom away from you as they possibly can. It's the same reason that these people laugh and say, well, only idiots buy gold and silver. Meanwhile, they're driving the price of gold and silver up, buying every physical piece and every dollar, every certificate and future they can get their hands on. It's all related. Let's see here. Solutions? There are all kinds of solutions. You know, you people took my advice. You wisely elected Ron Paul president in 2008. So that, oh no, you didn't. So I know that a lot of people had elections this week. Some of y'all liked it so much. You're going to have runoffs, and then you're going to have your general elections this fall. The big blue wave is coming. Watch out. You know, like George Carlin said, I'm sure your country will improve immediately. I love it. You're just giving me more material to work. It's job security for me. You people keep voting for these criminals. Keep it up. You know, I have 3 predictions about the near future in America and the West that I'm still going to hold off on making. But there are some solutions that I'm going to hold off on making. Really 2 of them that I see. You can probably guess what they are. They're along the lines of bug in or bug out. And I really want to, when I formally explain them, I want to kind of gear them towards young people. If I were 18, what would I do today? We'll get to that later. Back to the other news, the stuff we just can't do anything about. Like in the southeast, it's raining. It's been raining for like 2 weeks. It's going to keep on raining. The rain is good. The rain renews. We were getting a little short on water here and there. Other parts of the country are running droughts. It's all a big cycle. There's a tropical system in the Gulf. The Weather Channel is nervously keeping an eye on it. They love things like that. It gives them something to talk about. It's their version of the elections. Keep an eye on that if you're in Florida, the Panhandle, anywhere in the Gulf. That could become some sort of tropical storm, or it could fizzle out. We don't know. The Hawaii, the volcano, the Big Island I think it's on the Big Island. Somewhere in Hawaii, there's a volcano that just keeps on erupting. And you folks around that, well, you know, you knew what you were getting into moving to a volcanic island. And the lava apparently is very easy to see, but it's very, of course, very destructive. Keep an eye on it. Stay safe. Well, that pretty much concludes the end of my notes. A little bit more of the good news, and this goes back to Mr. Hogg and the school shootings and the gun controllers. They're not getting the traction they want out of the Santa Fe students. And there are also just there's one story after another that they don't want you to know about. Such as a video that I linked from the New York Post that from Brazil. It was a school shooting thwarted. I think there was an elementary school. The kids were gathered. It was a Mother's Day celebration. Mothers were there. And up out of nowhere runs a thug with a revolver. Right into the camera was in the perfect place. Caught this guy waving the gun around, threatening people. There were small children all around. And one of the mothers, an off-duty police officer, just calmly reached in her purse, pulled out a pistol, and shot this guy point blank in the heart. And the look on his, it's a graphic video. There's not a lot of blood, but you do witness someone being fatally shot. Take that with a grain of salt. The look on his face, he's like, "Oh, you shot me. Yeah, dumbass. Yeah, you threaten people, they're going to shoot you." And he's dead. Another criminal shot dead. Just in Oklahoma City yesterday, there was a restaurant, a shooting. Man walked in, shot or somehow wounded 4 people. He was shot dead by an armed citizen. Now, if you listen to the liberals, you're 500 times more likely to be killed with your own gun than to shoot a criminal. Okay, so I guess there must have been 500 other restaurant shootings yesterday. Why aren't they talking about those? Oh, that's because they're mentally ill and they're lying down in the grocery store. Anyway, it's a great country. It's been a great week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Do come back for more madness. The quality will improve probably, in another 20, 30 years. I'll see you next week, no later than Friday, and y'all stay safe.